But the schedule was medium bad. So I don't think they beat any top 50 teams either. Well, let's take a quick look. This is important. Everyone's saying to bet Murray State. Let's take a look. They played Bama back in November, lost. Auburn lost, only by 5 this time. Belmont lost by 13. No other top 100 teams did they win. Their only other loss was Jacksonville State, though, and they kind of ran through their schedule, faced Belmont again, got their revenge there. They have a great player in Ja Morant, as everyone says. But, I don't know. What do they have after Ja Morant? That's a good question. Maybe something to think about when you're handicapping Marquette. What if they double team them? Next, I want to pick out Michigan, actually. I complained about them and think they're wrong-seated by the way they do it. On KenPom, it's actually right. They actually shoot 48.3% on the road. Hard schedule. Destroyed North Carolina earlier this year. 74.5 points they score away and 68.7, a 5.8 variance. The numbers say Michigan's a pretty good team. And Virginia's the biggest variance and the hardest schedule. 47.7% on the road they shoot. 74.1 away offense, 57.5 away defense, 16.6 points on average. They had a pretty decent schedule, I mean, they played teams like Dayton, Maryland, Wisconsin, VCU, Florida State, well, when their schedule started. I mean, South Carolina, they destroyed a lot of teams. They make them look bad. There's some weaknesses. For some reason, Duke has their number. North Carolina seems to kind of have Duke's number. Well, now that Zion's back, who knows? And Duke seems to have, Virginia seems to have Duke's North Carolina's number. So there's that. See who all makes it. Iowa State shoots pretty well on the road, 46.9%, but they only average 3.7 more points on the road than they do allow. Medium hard schedule. Kentucky, this was interesting. 46.8 points or percent they shoot. 74.4 they score on the road and 70.2 they allow on the road. Now, the SEC's tougher, but Kentucky had a very, very hard schedule. They played Duke, and that was just a beatdown, and that probably threw some of the numbers off. Seton Hall, North Carolina, Louisville. They played some tough teams there. And so I guess some of their away games, they weren't closing out a ton, except for some of the tomato cans like Vanderbilt. But, they also had some injuries. Kentucky's very dangerous. Another one I like is Utah State, 6.6 variance, medium schedule, 46.5% on the road. So those are some really good teams. Tennessee, I don't know if I said them, 49.6%. They have a 5.8 variance, hard schedule. Tennessee is one of my top teams. Here's my top 6 that should, make the Final Four. I don't know if they will. I mean, we saw Baltimore, Maryland beat Virginia. Any given day, any team could lose to a top team. Well, any team, really. But I have my top teams as Tennessee. No order here, by the way. Tennessee, Michigan State. And because Michigan State actually shot really well, 48.3% on the road, 5.8 variance, very hard schedule. Kentucky, North Carolina, and Duke. Is that? Oh, and Virginia. So those are my top 6 teams. And, just that's by looking at kind of these numbers and KenPom's numbers, defense and everything. Now some teams to fade. You're looking at some teams are negative in the tournament. Seton Hall's hot, which is dangerous, but they shoot 43.9%, and they allow 1.4 points on the road. Then they score. Hard schedule, though. You have a team like Washington, who Washington was not that good this year. They only scored 0.1 more points on the road than they allowed. 68.9 they scored, allowed 68.8. Super easy schedule. So that really says something when you look at the schedule. I mean, you're looking at some of these teams that barely won their tournaments, like the North Dakota States, North Dakota State allowed 5.8 points more on the road with a bad schedule. NC Central allowed 5.4 more. But some of the teams you care about betting, Baylor allowed 1.3 points more on the road, 43.9 shooting percentage. Minnesota shot 40.7% on the road. They scored 63.6 and allowed 68.9. That's a minus 4.7 advantage. So everyone's playing up the Patino thing. Maybe it's Louisville that wants the revenge. Think of that. So those are just some of the numbers that I went through, and this was part of the way I filled out my bracket, obviously doing the KenPom, checking the spreads, checking the movements, and all that. So let's get into it. Now, the art of filling out a bracket isn't just who the best teams are. It's how you beat the rest of the teams if you think there's a weakness enough that could be exposed. It's not, and to be honest with you, over 50% of the brackets are going to be Duke. I'm sorry, it is. So you might pick Duke in a bracket of 100 people, and you might take 30th place. So when I fill out my bracket, I keep that in mind. But I don't always pick. I pick teams that the matchup could beat them. That's important to me. But anyways, real quick, let's blow through it. Obviously, I got Duke winning that game against, the playing game, North Dakota State, North Carolina Central. That's going to be a brutal game for those poor guys. Then you got UCF versus VCU, and I'm so torn on this one. Not going to lie, there's different ways of looking at this one. I think I want UCF, but I am fine if you pick VCU there. It don't matter. Mississippi State against Liberty, ran the numbers. I like Liberty in some ways, but Mississippi State should be able to take care of business. I looked at Liberty's schedule. They have no good wins, quality wins. Virginia Tech, I have getting by St. Louis. I have Belmont or Temple beating Maryland. LSU beating Yale. Another sweetheart everyone's picking is Yale. I think LSU might feel a little insulted there. Louisville over Minnesota. Michigan State over Bradley. Gonzaga. I have Syracuse beating Baylor. Marquette beating Murray State. And there's reasons for that. If Marquette's smart, they just look at Murray State's best player and take them out. Marquette was a top 20 team for a while. And then we have Florida State beating Vermont, Buffalo beating Arizona State or St. John's in a closer game than you think, Texas Tech beating Northern Kentucky, Nevada beating Florida, Michigan beating Montana. The other side, we have Virginia rolling. We have Ole Miss beating Oklahoma. We have Wisconsin beating Oregon. Surprise, surprise, right? Boy, is Oregon public dog all the way to a favorite. Kansas State, if Wade is playing, I am picking him. If Wade isn't, I'm picking UC Irvine. Villanova against St. Mary's. I love Nova. Purdue is going to get past Old Dominion, and a tougher matchup than people think. Cincinnati. I'm fading Cincinnati. Iowa is going to win this game, and it's because I've seen them handle defenses before. Normally they lose against the good defense, but Cincinnati's offense is not good. Everyone's going to be on Cincinnati because of what they saw when Houston shot 30%. Now Houston would have lost to Manhattan that game. So just know that Cincinnati's getting a little bit too much love here. Tennessee, I have, obviously, North Carolina. Utah State smoking Washington. I love that one because of the reason that I said. Now, maybe this motivates Washington coming in as a dog. But right now, it's all Utah State for me. I have an upset. my 5-12 upset is, as you know, we didn't pick Wisconsin playing Oregon. We didn't pick Murray State. We didn't pick Liberty, but we are picking New Mexico State. Auburn's on their high horse right now. They won the SEC tournament. They partied extremely hard. New Mexico State is a great shooting team, and they are legit. You know, they're in a very bad division. Don't get me wrong. But let me go over some of the things that New Mexico State does. They shoot 46.4% on the road. They score 77.3% on the road, allow only 66.3% on the road. They had a bad schedule, no huge wins, obviously. But they've been blowing out people, and I kind of feel more comfortable taking the team that has something to prove. Auburn just won something. They might get jumped here. New Mexico State shoots very well. Very, very well. So, there's that. Anyways, if that doesn't work out, I don't have Auburn going all that far anyway. Or, sorry, New Mexico State going all that far anyway. I have another big upset in this bracket. I don't know what you're all going to think about this, but I have Northeastern beating Kansas. This is Northeastern's Super Bowl, and they smell blood here, okay? They smell blood. 47.5 shooting percentage on the road. They outscore their opponents by only 3.2, but they had a decent, non-conference schedule. They played teams like Virginia Tech, Davidson, Syracuse. They lost to those teams. But I really like the way they finished. I like the fact that they shoot fifth best in the nation, 57.2% field goal, and 38.8% three-point percentage. This is kind of one of those like Baltimore games that could happen, shooting their minds off when, Auburn might not buy a bucket. So if you're going for upsets, I like shooting teams. This team smells blood. Kansas has been one of the worst ATS away teams in all of college basketball. So that's the upset. The next one I have is Iowa State beating Ohio State handily. Houston beating Georgia State. I do like a hard-fought game by Georgia State, man. I do like that. Wofford playing Seton Hall. I like Wofford. I like Seton Hall, but this is another really, really tough one for me because if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, it would have been Wofford hands down, but Seton Hall has been so hot and they are more talented. Wofford has been together for a long time. So, it's hard for me to fade Wofford. But Seton Hall, they have some big boys, and they have some serious players over there. They rank 29th in height. Wofford's like 150. Miles Powell's just been killing it. That Villanova game really could have went anyway, and Seton Hall could have won that. So I know everyone's going to be on Wofford. I will be the lone one on Seton Hall. And, of course, Kentucky rolls. All right. Now, if I have a Sweet 16 Cinderella, it's Northeastern because they would play New Mexico State and get to the Sweet 16 that way. Just because of what I said they're shooting. And it's fun to pick one of these. It's probably going to happen, but we just do not know who it's going to be, right? But, looking at Auburn's success recently and look at what they did all year, they went from one of the most undervalued teams to one of the most overvalued teams just in about a week. So, there you go. Now, quickly, might as well just go right to the end here. Duke versus Michigan State.